Hey everyone, today for another vlog, and for today I would like to talk about hijacked expectations. So it's a term I just kind of came up when I was thinking about what to say today. Because so just to give some context, so lately I've been feeling like super pressured by myself, right? Most pretty much all but only by myself. Feeling pressure to draw more, like feeling I'm behind. But like I've been talking a lot some previous vlogs, such as living outside of society's clock, I think it's called, where I talked about like this imposed pace that you kind of feel when you are around people. Maybe it's a kind of misleading to call it society's clock, but it's because it's not really a society as general. It's more like subcultures. But I think society also has a certain pace that it kind of makes you feel bad if you're not following. But for today, I want to be more specific, which is this sense of having to like conform to someone else's expectations. And I think, just by the way I say it, it's pretty clear that it starts from school, right? The fact that you have to like meet someone else's deadlines that they impose onto you. But I think it's something more general than school. It's a pattern that keeps happening throughout life if you're not careful, which is yeah, just this sense of like, I need to do X. I am behind people. I should do X. I just need to do that so that I can feel good. Or I can't relax until I do X or whatever. It's this sense of like, it's 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 not just the should mechanism, but it's a huge part of it, the should mechanism. But I think it's really when you let someone else's goals and expectations replace your own, right? So hijacking. And the problem is that it happens so much throughout life that we can unconsciously do it, even like in our personal lives, right? So it starts with school, as I've said, and still happens at work. Chances are that you are not really I mean, personally at least, that's my personal state right now, is that I'm not doing like the thing I would want most, right, in life. So I'm kind of like being coerced into work. And so because so much of our life happens, having to meet someone else's expectations, right? Family is a huge one as well. While I feel like it kind of becomes our own way of being, like you just, like even the way you relate with yourself is like this sort of like, always needing to get to the next level, always needing to conform to some type of expectations you've inherited from your parents or from people in the country you hang out with. Right? So, for example, in like the artist space, you see that so much, right? This pressure that you're not good enough, that you're behind, and all that. And it's so toxic, honestly. It's so toxic because it doesn't help making good art. It doesn't help be, fulfilled in life. It just creates this really toxic pressure of, comparing yourself to others, treating yourself like an object. Really, that's really the I think the fundamental problem I have with yourself is that you end up treating yourself like an object that needs to like, as if you need to like upgrade specs, and instead of treating yourself like a human being who, has probably very good reasons why you're not going as fast as you want to. Because the thing with expectations, right, is that you have to ask yourself, like, where do those expectations even come from? Like, who tells you that you're behind? Who tells you that you're too slow or too, not good enough or whatever? Because a lot of the time, those expectations, they're based on nothing. They're not based on any reality, right? They they're just like top down enforced. So like top down meaning, you have some kind of like belief that reality should be a certain way, and then you try to make reality conform to that belief instead of, the much more sensible thing, which is to like listen to reality, right? Like talking to yourself why you're not doing the thing, like trying to understand yourself, and also trying to understand. It's also more than just that for me. The process of like uninstalling those various, honestly, they should honestly be called various expectations. Uninstalling those goals is to ask yourself, like, do I really want that to be my life? Like, do I really agree to the goal in the first place, right? So, because there are two things, right? Just to slow down a bit, there are two things going on. First thing is to make someone else's goal your own. So it's a hijacked goal, you could say. And the second one is making someone else's expectations slash pace your own. So let's say that you know what you want out of life, right? Which is a pretty big if, because most people are made to be out of touch with that, because that's sort of what society is about. But let's say you know what you want out of life. There's still a thing where, like, someone else's pace, or like certain like mindset or whatever, it kind of can rub on you. And maybe you're more of a, free flowing, not as neurotic, not as obsessive as some people, and so like they make you feel bad for not like working as hard, essentially, right? So being made to like follow someone else's pace, rather than your own pace, even though you're doing the thing you want, right? But you're not doing it the way you want. So it's path and also pace that matters. And I think these days I'm more aligned with my path. More, still not like 100. It's still, it's a work in progress. So it's never like a one and done deal type of thing, right? It's always like a continuous process. But like the I'm really like out of touch with my pace, I think, and I think I'm trying to just go way too fast in life, and just comparing myself to people who are very different than me. Because, for example, I'm an artist, right? But I I studied math, and I program as well. So I'm not just I'm not the type of person who just devotes their entire life to art. And I think, unconsciously, well, even just quite consciously actually, I tend to compare myself to people who basically devote their entire life to art. And it's no wonder that those people get much better results in art than I do, because that's not what my entire life is about, right? And I'm completely and that's really what I want out of life. I don't want my life to be entirely about one thing. I'm very interested in a lot of things, and obviously I'm aware of the trap of, like, being a dabbler and never committing to anything. But I wouldn't say I'm like a super like hyper generalist who's interested in everything and wants to get good at everything. But it's more like I'm interested in many things, and it's like, like 3 to 5, let's say. And I want to get really, invested in those 3 to 5 things, not just one single thing for the rest of my life. And so, the comparison doesn't even make sense then, because, comparisons in general are kind of nonsense. But even then, the comparison doesn't make sense, because I'm such a different type of artist, because I'm not, so obsessive that I just spend all my time thinking and drawing. And also, yeah, as I've said in like the first the vlog of this kind of period of my life, and is that I'm just really, really burnt out on school, like burnt out from school, and so I'm just in general I just want rest. And so I think it's very, consciously I know this. Consciously I know that it's very insensitive to like not allow myself to rest, but I think unconsciously I haven't allowed myself to rest yet. And it's a very I expect that it's actually quite a deep thing in me, right? The fact that I don't allow myself to rest, it's probably rooted in like a lot of trauma and a lot of how to say, it's just like a very old pattern, and I doubt that it's something I can just like stop doing, like within a couple of weeks. But at least bringing it to consciousness is a good start, right? So yeah, letting someone else's goals override your own is really, I think it's kind of a major epidemic, but that people don't really talk about, because oh, here's the thing I just noticed, right? The nature of the internet is very power law in its nature. So a power law distribution is one where uh, a few individuals, in one of the tail, has basically everything, right? It's like, if you think of like the Pareto principle, which is 20% of the 20% of the pods contain 80% of the beans, or something like that, right? It's like the 20-80 principle. That is the power law distribution in general, right? It's that a small proportion of individuals of the population, um, have a disproportionate amount of X, whatever X is. And popularity is pretty much always a power law distribution, right? So most people don't have any following, but the ones who have big followings, they have like a massive following, right? Like it's pretty crazy, right? So that is the power of distribution, and the internet is power distribution, right? Because popularity is. And so the advice that we hear, they only come from the consequence of that is that the advice that you hear only come from a few sources, right? Because again, popularity is power law, which means that the people who have a huge following are few, which means that most of the advice you hear is only comes from a few sources, and therefore, this means that the internet is a massive, massive source of yeah, overriding, right? So, like people's goals and path and pace being overridden by someone else's goals and pace and all that. And so it seems like it's a very like systemic thing to witness people being like either like feeling like they need to go faster than they feel comfortable, or feeling like they feel worthless because like they don't get X or Y done before they are 25 or something, right? So it's pretty crazy, right, to see this whole. I never really noticed how systemic this whole thing is of feeling behind, because it's very clear to me that a lot of people feel this way, but it never appeared to me that the whole um the whole arrangement of popularity kind of makes that a thing, right? So the fact that we only listen to a few people at the end of the day, uh, and it's rather troubling, right? Because this means that we are basically like this means that the internet's infrastructure for information basically makes it a very coercive place if you don't develop a relationship with yourself, which kind of sucks. But at the same time, the internet can also be used for connecting with other people who are aligned with themselves and who don't want to override you. So I wouldn't say it's a big thing, right? Because there are many ways of using the internet, but it's something to keep track of, right? For sure. This this it's kind of crazy, honestly. Like the way there are people on the internet who just tell you, yo, you need to do X or you need to do Y. Like who even are you to say that? Like I don't even know you personally. Like if a parent did that, he would feel wrong to like coerce their children. But like it's even worse if it's like some fucking random person on the internet that doesn't even know you exist, that you know has this tone of you should do X or you should do Y, and it's fucking bullshit. But it's a very strong force. It's for sure. Even though I can consciously talk about it, I still feel it a lot in myself, unconsciously, like those all of these hijacked expectations. And I think the key is to really start to slow down and to really like start listening to yourself more. And the problem is that our society is really bad at listening and slowing down. Those two things kind of go hand in hand, and yeah, it's always seems to be like about more and more. It never seems to be about the what or the why questions. It always seems to be about like the improvement type of mindset. For instance, it's pretty toxic, all of this, I have to say. Um, I find self improvement to be like a really deplorable case of like this mindset of more and more, because the worst thing about self improvement is that there are many genuine insights and there are many good books within it, but it's really corrupted with all of this toxic unworthiness energy behind it, right? Like the fact that a lot of people who feel shitty about themselves, they turn to self help, and it's kind of fed on the industry. It's kind of fed on that unworthiness, actually. And so it's never like about addressing the unworthiness. It's always about making people stuck in this game of self improvement and never resolving the deep issues. In general, it's a thing. It's a really big thing in society, right? It's this pattern of incentive for not solving the problem of its root. The fact that institutions have an incentive to not solve the problems at their root is it's really disgusting. Um, it's yeah, it's pretty sad. But then again, that means that there's also an incentive for smaller players, such as writers or people who make videos or all that. That means that there is an incentive for people who actually provide the service, right, of solving problems at the root. Because if if most of the bigger things they don't help people resolve root problems, then that means that there is a demand actually people who can provide, tools, or like who can just be there to help you deal with your own problems at the root, right? So in a way, it's kind of shitty, but at least there's also incentive for the good thing to exist, right? So I guess it's not the end of the world either, but it is how it is. So yeah. I think that's about everything I had to say. Like, quite for this vlog, felt quite focused compared to usually. Like it felt like I really had something clear to say. And well, I guess it's pretty obvious why I had something clear to say. It's because it's literally what I'm experiencing right now. So can hardly get more direct and focused. But yeah, so thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.